Hello, my name is Derek McDonald. I am a sophomore at Wabash College, and today we're going to be looking at the 2024 Ohio Senate race. We'll be looking at why this race is important, as well as some of the polls and what they are saying about this upcoming election. To begin, we'll talk about why the Ohio Senate race is important. Historically, Ohio has been a battleground state, shifting support for Democrats and Republicans over the years. In recent years, however, we have seen a shift towards Republican support as the Ohio Electoral College has voted for Trump in 2016 and in 2020. Currently in the Senate, Democrats hold a 51 to 49 majority. However, if we look at the West Virginia seat, which was held by a Democrat, that Democrat is not running for re-election, and experts are saying that that seat is most likely going to be taken over by a Republican. That puts the Senate back to a 50-50 split, so the outcome of the Ohio election has a great potential of putting the majority of Senate in favor of Republicans. Before we begin looking at polls for this election, let's take a look at the candidates. Sherrod Brown is the current Democratic senator who is running for re-election. He ran unopposed in the primary. Bernie Moreno is running for his first term in Senate. He had a rather competitive primary, but came out on top with a little over 50% of the votes. Now let's take a look and see what the polls are saying. If we look at the most recent polls dating back to the beginning of September, we can see how most of them show Brown having majority support, with just two of them showing a majority support for Moreno. If we dive deeper into two of these polls, the Rasmussen Reports poll and the YouGov/Bowling Green State University Combined Effort poll, both these polls were conducted just days apart, and they are very similar in terms of sample size, which refers to the amount of people used in the poll, modes, which refers to the ways in which surveys were conducted, and they both polled for likely voters. If we look at the Rasmussen Reports poll, they have Moreno holding a slight majority over Brown with 45 to 44%. However, if we look at the YouGov poll, which was conducted just a few days after, we see that they have Brown holding majority over Moreno. It is curious to see that despite the YouGov poll only being conducted during and a week after the Rasmussen poll, they have conflicting results. Another poll that is worth looking at is the most recent poll conducted by the Trafalgar Group. This poll is deemed the most accurate because it has a 2.9% margin of error. I'll explain what that is later on, but this is the lowest margin of error out of all of the polls conducted this year. It is interesting to see that this late poll holds the results very contested, with Sherrod Brown just having a little bit of a majority over Moreno, 48 to 47.2. Two other important polls to look at are the Marist polls. Marist conducted a poll in June of this year and in October of this year. This allows us to create a timeline and to see how the polls were shaping up across the 4 months leading up to the election. The June poll conducted by Marist had Brown holding a 50% to 44% lead over Moreno. In comparison to the October poll, though, Brown has stayed the same, while the support for Moreno has grown to 48%. Despite there not being much development in the support for Brown, the data in the Marist poll may suggest that there is increasing support for Moreno. Due to the conflicting results that we saw earlier, we have to think about what these polls are actually saying. For that to happen, we have to look at the margin of error. The margin of error refers to the percent points that a pollster can confidently say that their results are in between. So if Brown has 45% support and their margin of error of 3, that means Brown can have anywhere between 48% and 42% support. And the pollster is saying that he can confidently state that the results will be in between those methods. So if we look at the Trafalgar poll, which is the most recent, we can see a lot of this cross-reference that can put either candidate above the other despite what the actual results say. Now for the final question of who do I think will win? Bernie Moreno. I think Bernie Moreno will win because he has the endorsement and full backing of Donald Trump. In Ohio, we see a shift towards support for Trump. So I think that will run congruent with the Senate election, and Bernie Moreno will come out on top.